So, first, had you ever worked with an oral history interview before?
I had never worked with oral history before, or even recognized that it was actually a part of history.
Tell us about your experience working with an oral history interview.
Working with the oral history was very interesting, comparing the transcripts that were done in the 80s with the actual interview and then touching them up and seeing the real places too in the interviews was really interesting. It gave sort of factual information in addition to like social information as well from the interview. Listening to it gave it more life and really brought the interview to life because you could hear the pauses and where the memory was hazy, or when she got excited about things, and just hearing the inflection and the tone of her voice telling me whether it was a good period of time for her and her family or if it was a struggle that she went through during the time period.
Who was your narrator?
I had Ella Lee.
Tell us a little bit about Ella Lee.
Well, Ella Lee was a very strong woman, I'd say. She was a domestic worker. She was from Georgia, I believe, and then she moved to Pennsylvania pretty much because her brother-in-law had said, why don't you come up here, I'll pay for your train. And her husband had just passed away, so she said, I have nothing to lose, and she took her kids up to Philadelphia, where she worked as a domestic worker for several families. One of her employers actually worked at the Gimbel's department store, which was interesting. The OHMS indexing was challenging, but it was very helpful to organize the interview, and I think it is a really useful tool to have to show the timestamps of the different subjects that they're talking about and kind of organize it. And being able to connect pictures to it as well was very helpful because you got to visualize it. Like I know I connected Lee's marriage certificate to one of the OHMS, so seeing that kind of brings that information to life even more. I think it adds a context to the situation because usually in these interviews it was like a stream of consciousness versus the OHMS index gives it that organization and gives that context of the situation so the listener can follow along more aptly.
Give me an example of how that works.
Like I know in my interview, she talked about like some of the things I couldn't understand her when I first heard the interview, but then by researching and going back, I understood what they were. Like she said Lincoln Hospital, but it sounded more like Lincoln, and I was searching forever for this Lincoln Hospital in Philadelphia, but it's actually Lincoln. And so me putting that in the OHMS index gives the listener that extra edge so they know what is happening and can put a context around the situation.
Takeaways from the course. If you were to be talking to someone about this course a year from now, what would you tell them?
I tell them that we left behind something. We have a website, it's public, like we have a published website that people can visit, they can see, and that's our work pretty much condensed and put into one place, organized. And for me, that's really cool being as a freshman in the university to have my work already out there as a part of something, a part of an oral history. As a history major, that's pretty exciting, and I think that's what I'll tell people. I'll send them the link. So yeah.